to start the signing? Because we don't want to be the very first ones. Are you sure? We can stand.
L'kol zman ve'et l'kol chefetz tachad hashamayim. There is for all a time for every need under heaven. Eit laledet ve'et lamut, a time to be born and a time to die. Eit latat ve'et la'akor natua, a time to plant and a time to uproot that which is planted. Eit lifrotz ve'et livnot, a time to tear down and a time to build up. Eit livkot ve'et lizchok, a time to cry and a time to laugh. Eit sefod, and there's a time to mourn. We gathered to honor the life of Max Brauer, Moshe ben Binyamin u'Miriam, to be a source of comfort to those who are in our midst as mourners, to his son Ernesto, to Ingrid and to Jackie, and to the entire family. We honor Max's life by linking him to the generations of the Jewish people, linking him to God, as well as telling his own story. Max was born February 19th, 1926, which means that in 2 weeks he would have turned 96 years old. And he was blessed. He was blessed to be married to his wife Heidi for 46 years, she passing in 1999, and together to have had 7 children. And so I want to honor that harvest of his and Heidi's life together with their daughter Irene and Irene's children who are here, Joshua and Aisha, and Aisha's children, to honor great-grandchildren, Jake and Ashley, their Max's son, Ernesto, who with his wife Connie are children of Michelle and Bob, and Michelle with her husband Adam are parents of Jovi. Third was Ingrid with her husband Howard, to be parents of Karen and Hannah. They had a daughter who passed at a young age, Alicia. Fifth was Jackie, who with her husband Greg are parents of grandchildren Ian and Alex, who are here. There's a daughter, Miriam, still alive. And last, the daughter, Denise, who passed away in 2009, whose husband, Scott, is here. And so, together, Max and Heidi were privileged to live as husband and wife for 46 years, which also meant that Max was single for the last 22 years. And during that time, he remained in his orientation deeply committed and connected to Heidi, she being the only woman in his life. And this last Monday, Max had moved with his wife to Mission Viejo many years ago and lived in the same house where they had been with their children in Mission Viejo just until 3 months ago, when he took a fall and saw that he was not fully able to take care of himself. And so he found a place closer to Ingrid and Howard in Fullerton at a board and care. And on Monday, with their son Ernesto, who lives in Wisconsin, here, the three children were able to be with their dad. Mind you, almost 96, fully conscious, and doing something that is rare. Namely, I often ask families, if your loved one could speak at the funeral, what would he or she say? And what you said to me in response is, I know what he would say, because he said it to us on Monday. Tuesday he was already not speaking and passed on Wednesday. There is much more to share about Max's life, which we will do with eulogies of family. But we begin with a handout that you have received with Psalm 23. I invite the grandchildren to come forward, to stand next to me as the harvest of Max Moshe's life. I will read Psalm 23 in Hebrew, and then the grandchildren will read it in English, and you will join together. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai ro'i lo echzar bino deshe yagbitzeni, al mei menuchot yinahaleni. Nafshi yeshovev yancheni v'maglei tzedek l'man shemo, gam ki elech begeit salmavet lo ira ra ki ata imadi. Shiftecha umishantecha hema yenachamuni. Taroch lefanai shulchan neged zorerai, dishanta v'shemen roshi kosira vaya. Achto v'chesed yirdufuni kol yemei chayai, v'shafti beveit Adonai li'orech yamim. Please join with them.
Psalm of David. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
Max was born in Sao Paulo, Brazil. His parents having moved there just a couple of years before from Hanover, Germany, and with their newborn would return to Germany in the late 20s until his dad, Kurt, came home and told his wife, Miriam, about an opportunity in Argentina. Sir Baron Hirsch, the Jewish philanthropist, had created an organization called the Jewish Colonization Association that invited Jews to an outpost in Argentina called Mosesville. And at the age of 11, Max, his parents, his family, moved to Argentina to an area known for Jewish gauchos. Everybody who came was receiving through the JCA 140 cows from Holland, some land, and the opportunity to work hard, which meant that they had gone from being in the city to now being farm workers, their own farm. And it was hard because the money they received was to be a loan, to be repaid. In World War II, the element of casein in milk became valuable because it was used in the making of gunpowder. And with that, in a few years, they were able, Kurt was able to pay off his debts. For Max, living in Mosesville meant that his formal education ended and that he was largely isolated as a worker in the field. In his early 20s, he moved to Buenos Aires and then got certified as a sewing machine technician. That ability to learn how to fix things would be one of the qualities that would define his talent that he would use in many ways throughout his life. He would later go into sales and fixing of sewing machines, and that would lead the family to moving to Mexico City. 5 of the children were born in Buenos Aires. It was in Buenos Aires that Max had met Heidi, Ide, at a Jewish dance, and they were married within the year. And in many ways, Heidi complimented Max. She was the outgoing one. To have 7 children, 2 more children born in Mexico, was very unusual in the Jewish community of Buenos Aires. You shared with me that people in Buenos Aires would tease that they had taken on the ways of Mexico by becoming such a big family. And then, having lived in Mexico City, with Heidi having sisters, 2 sisters in America, one of them being in Mission Viejo. In 1984, the family, Max and Heidi, moved. And here again was a challenge, and that is Max was already 58 years old, needing to learn a new language. His resiliency was one of the qualities as well that would define him. A number of family members will now talk about the legacy of Max, who would love to tell family stories with an uncanny memory for detail and a joy of storytelling. Ernesto will be the last to speak, in that he has a poem to share, and that feels like a way to pull together the stories. In that light, I invite Ingrid to come forward first, followed by her sister Jackie.
My dad was a man who began life as a Holocaust survivor, but built from his humble beginnings a legacy of family through his children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren, and I know that legacy is what he would want us to celebrate today. A few words about my dad's life. His family was forced to flee Germany, finding refuge in Argentina, starting a new life as farmers in Mosesville in the province of Santa Fe was incredibly exciting for my dad as an 11-year-old. His daily routine involved waking up at 4 in the morning to milk the cows, clean the barn, plant soy, plant alfalfa and other trees and crops. They had, as the rabbi said, 150 cows or so, and each had their own name. My dad could actually recognize each cow by its own unique, deep and calming bellow. The overwhelming change of lifestyle for the family was not easy, but they were incredibly thankful to be alive when they heard the fate of Jews in Europe while listening to the BBC of London. Life in Argentina was tough due to economic and political issues, and he found himself making the decision to move to another country just as his own parents did years before. After a few years in Mexico City, my mom and dad started a clothing business. They had no experience in this new venture, and after many years of hard work and long hours, the business started to do better and become profitable. But family was always the most important thing to him. He loved and missed his family in Argentina, and he also yearned to live near family since we didn't have any near us in Mexico. So the idea to move to the USA became reality in 1984 when we moved to Mission Viejo, California. At that time, my dad, a 58-year-old, when he moved to the USA, and a few years later, became so proud to become an American citizen. My dad cared for his children. He made sure that they were all well educated, attended college, and became professionals. He wanted to give each of us the ability to achieve our dreams and aspire for more. Although he had to see the death of 3 of his daughters and his wife, he was able to keep his focus on the positive and was always adoring and adored grandfather. My father was an incredible avid reader and knew so much about geography and history and politics and astronomy. He read the newspaper from top to bottom and was very involved with local and worldwide affairs. His passion was to read and was happy to add books to his long list of Kindle novels. He used his computer to read the paper and Google things. He loved technology. He instilled in each of us his passion for learning and embracing the new and different. And we are so much better for his guidance in helping us embrace the world with all its challenges and opportunities. As my dad grew older, I would look forward to talking with him at the end of each day, usually around 5 p.m. That was my time with my dad, every day. This is when I was still able to learn so much more about him, his life, and his thoughts. I'm lucky to have had that time, and I will cherish and remember those moments. I will always remember my dad as a hard worker, inquisitive, and loving man. His detailed stories of early life in Germany and Argentina will always remain with me. I still feel his strong grip in my hand when he told me he loved me numerous times just the day before he died. Even to the very end, I felt his passion for life and the sincere, truly deep sense of love that he had for me and for all his family. I love you, Dad.
My father saw a lot through his almost 96 years on this planet. From Sao Paulo, Brazil, where he was born, to Hamburg, Germany, up to age 11, to Moisesville, Argentina, to moving to Buenos Aires, Mexico City, and later California. From his detailed descriptions and storytelling, he made me feel I was there with him as he took a daily train to his Torschule, trying to avoid potential confrontations with Nazi tormentors, and arrived safely to his school. How he knew from the age of 5 this anti-Semitism and hatred. I can feel his emotion, fear, and excitement as he embarked on a voyage to Argentina with his mother and 3 sisters, leaving his classmates behind and wondering about the future. Having seen pictures and heard so many stories, I can picture him riding horses, milking cows, and living as a gaucho. I can imagine his anxiety about the family left behind in Germany, his classmates and friends, about the war and what happened to the community he had left behind. How could this disaster and tragedy not shape him as a human being? How he saw the world and his values. My father's storytelling made it possible for me to imagine him as a young man in Buenos Aires, meeting and marrying my mother, how handsome my father looked and how beautiful my mother was, and how they dressed so formally for the movies, for dinner, or any other outing as it was customary in the 1950s. And then, all the stories he loved to tell and told so well meld into the real father I know, the father who held my hand and walked with me to the Parque de los Columpios in Mexico City every Sunday. How I loved those walks and getting ice cream on the way home. My father was patient with me. I loved stories and asked him many questions and insisted he read me the comics, stories, and books, which he did until I finally learned to read and could do it myself. When I picture my dad all those years ago, I remember two things the most: his chain smoking and how hard he worked. I can picture him arranging the fabric and layers to cut the patterns for the shirts they manufactured and sold, and how he packed and prepared the boxes for shipping. He was physically strong and precise and tidy. The only ailment I remember him having is backaches, which were solved with steroid injections. Other than that, he would rise early, wake us up for school, and work hard, long hours, mostly standing all day. He told me he loved his work and believed it important to do what you like. My parents rarely took vacations or days off, yet my dad did regularly visit the family in Argentina and was close to his mother, my Oma Marta, sister Rita, Edith, and Sigrid, and his nephews Claudio, Rene, and nieces Ruti, Gabi, and Trixie. After we moved to the US, my father worked hard at the deli they had purchased and helped shuttle all of us kids and grandchildren, Aisha and Joshua, to school and daycare. Perhaps all that driving motivated him to teach us all to drive, which certainly was trying on his nerves. I'm so grateful that he had patience with me. He even taught me to change a tire. My dad was deeply interested in science, politics, and economics. He had firm beliefs and loved to expound on ideas and opinions with his families and acquaintances. He read continuously and voraciously and was able to use social media until almost the end of his life. He was patient and meticulous and took care of his possessions by maintaining them and fixing them if needed. Because of how he grew up, he was environmentally conscious before that became trendy. He told me that when you get water from a well, you know that every drop matters and you don't waste water. I'm grateful that my father cared about my mother, all his children, Irene, Ernesto, Ingrid, Miriam, and Denise, grandchildren Aisha, Joshua, Bob, Michelle, Hannah, Karen, Alex, and Ian, great-grandchildren Ashley, Jake, Kyle, and Jovi, and extended family. He was human, with flaws of course, but he was a dedicated father. He descended from a father who worked in World War I from Germany and suffered from PTSD. He had to immigrate from a land torn by hatred and anti-Semitism to a completely different place where he worked the land and raised animals. Through all the hardships and suffering, he managed to survive, to work, to marry, and to raise a family. He wanted above all to give us what he didn't have: a good education and opportunities to live free of war, poverty, and strife. He wanted us to be good people and happy. He accomplished that and more. Thank you, Papi, for your dedication, your love of learning, your sense of justice and mercy, your love of family. I will miss you, honor your memory, and love you forever. Papa, ich liebe dich. Papi, te quiero mucho. Dad, I love you very much.
Less than 6 months ago, we were here in this same place, sharing in the burial of Max and Heidi's firstborn, Irene. And there was comfort in knowing that Irene would be buried near her mom, Heidi, who's buried right here next to the plot in which Max is being buried. And Max was in a wheelchair less than 6 months ago, and as earth was being placed on Irene's coffin, I had a chance to talk briefly with Max, who said, "It's not easy to bury a child." I was struck by his clarity of speech, the age of 95, very fully present. With Irene's passing, her children, Aisha and Josh, were the mourners. I now invite Aisha and Josh to come forward to honor their Opa.
Our parents give us life. Our grandparents give us a sense of who we are and where we come from. Today, I wish to honor my grandfather, Max, or Opa as I have always called him. I am his first grandchild. Opa lived a very long life, just shy of his 96th birthday. Pretty remarkable, just like him. He was a vivid storyteller and had an amazing memory for details, dates especially. I was amazed he could remember the day of the week, something that happened on an event that passed so long ago. We remembered and we remarked on the very auspicious day he left this world, 2/2/22, and it was a Tuesday. Fitting as if he chose it for us to always remember him on. Opa was an avid reader and lover of books. He read newspapers in 3 different languages, German, Spanish, and English, every single day. I remember him in his recliner chair catching up on all the news, events, and chatting up about politics, events, weather, everything. He worked very hard to give his family a better life. His was a challenging life, leaving Germany, starting over in Argentina, working on a farm, and moving from Mexico to the United States with his whole family. He and Oma Heidi opened their restaurant business called Mario's Deli. I have fond memories going there after school. He would be doing the accounting while Oma attended to the cooking and tending for the customers. The last time I saw Opa in person was at Mom's funeral. He said something that truly hit my heartstrings. With a depth of love in his tearful eyes and sincere broken voice, he told me how much he loved me and that he was very proud of me. And he appreciated all that I had done for Mom. He took my hands in his, and he kissed me on the cheeks and placed his hands on my cheeks affectionately. I truly felt his love that day. It was very endearing, and I will never forget that moment. I will never forget him. He taught us manners, respect, and hard work, but that lasting lesson to show each other love deeply from the heart is one of the most important ones that I will take with me and carry on as his legacy. Opa, I love you. Thank you.
Hey everyone, I'm Josh. I'm Max's grandson. But like my sister said, to us he was always Opa. Starting around 2 years old, when I was 2 years old, and we moved within walking distance of my grandparents, Opa was always there. So from my earliest memories, I always had my Opa. And I was lucky enough to spend a lot of time with him growing up. As the main male figure in my life, he deserves a lot of the credit for the man that I grew up to become. He taught me a lot about respect and hard work, strength, attention to detail. He taught me a lot about respect, hard work, strength, attention to detail, like when your notes blow away, so you put your hand up. How to strive to do things better every time you did them. The importance of following current events and what's going on in the world, and having an opinion that's informed. He taught me how to dress a mean olive oil and vinegar salad, and how to call things exactly as you saw them, without any filter. By continually choosing a path of uncertainty and strife, rather than comfort and ease as most do, he enabled me to grow up in a very safe place, get a world-class education, have a shot at fulfilling my potential, all in spite of hurdles that would have tripped up many others. All of his struggles made him a very strong man, which enabled him to live independently up until the age of 95. As everyone has recounted, reading his newspapers in multiple languages, working his way through dozens of books every year, his mind was absolutely sharp as a tack up until the last few months of his life. He was the first to admit that he had some regrets and wasn't perfect, but there's no doubt in my mind that he was right to feel that he was a good man overall. He had a good life. He was a good son, a good brother, a good husband, a good father, and a good opa. So it's with a heavy heart and some tears of sadness that I say goodbye to him today. But I find comfort that I'll be reminded of him every time I put on his watch. And reminded of the importance of facing every day with his strength and resolve. So the ones you love and the generations after you have the greatest opportunity to fulfill their true potential. At the end, he even softened his stance on saying, "I love you." So I know he won't be annoyed when I say, "We love you, Opa. Rest in peace."
You want to say something?
Thank you for your love, support, and guidance, Rabbi Spitz, Sister Ingrid, Jackie, Brothers Howard, Greg, and Scott. The love of my life, my wife Connie, son Robert, daughter Michelle, and son-in-law Adam. But you all know, special my great-granddaughter Jovia, my cousins, nieces and nephews, uncles and aunt here in Argentina or in Israel. You know that public speech was never my strength, that I was raised in a household with 5 sisters who did all the talking. And I can honestly never speak with having my PowerPoint presentation and a projector. For all the above reasons, I would like to read a poem that means a lot to me. Life is a Journey by Alvin Fine. Birth is a beginning and death a destination. But life is a journey, a going, a growing from stage to stage, from childhood to maturity and youth to old age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength or strength to weakness and often back again, from health to sickness and back we pray to health again, from offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, from grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward and ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but having made the journey stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, but life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage, made by stage to life everlasting. For my father, my mentor, and my strength.
In some ways, the last words are those of Max. As what you shared with me, he said to you, his children, on Monday. And what you shared that he said to you was first a statement of honesty and humility. I made mistakes, and I also did many things that were right. And for the things that I did that weren't right, I hope that you will forgive me. He had said to you through the years that I love you is not simply to be said in any moment. It is words that matter, words of the heart. And to say I love you must be said in a moment where they are fully expressed for real. On Monday, over and over and over, he said to the three of you, I love you, I love you, I love you. In some ways you shared it was a different side of Max, a different side of your dad, softer, more vulnerable, more open. Those who come from Germany in our tradition have a nickname that you each have shared in talking about him. The word is a yeke. A yeke is a stereotype of certain qualities that are the strengths and weaknesses of that German culture. The strength is an ability to be very focused, to tend to detail. That quality of discipline that I've so admired in German Jews that have so remarkably lived life moving forward. Despite all the pains of the past, that's another quality of survivors like your dad, like your Opa. The ability not only to know what was and to love to tell the story, but the ability to always be looking forward in a way that was deeply disciplined. As I noted, to a great degree from what you shared with me, Max relied on his ezer kenegdo, the biblical phrase for one's helpmate, his Heidi, to be the social person. His focus was on what was before him and needed to be done. In some ways, he could sometimes be a little stern. He could be a little bit hard. First and foremost, with the self-discipline for himself that required that constant sense of being self-contained, of being focused. And indeed, he traversed lots of physical land, but more, was able to build with Heidi a family that in this moment of saying farewell to him physically steps forward across generations to honor the man he was, the family he built, and having put family at the center of what mattered. How fortunate, Ashrei Ha'ish, so Psalms begins, Shelo halach ba'atzat reshaim, is the person who has not found counsel among evildoers. The word that begins Psalms, the word Ashrei, is often translated as happy, but it's not a word about a fleeting emotion. In the Bible, Lev, heart, expresses not just emotions, but the mind. Ashrei, happy, in our tradition, is the one who is both of mind and heart, who lives the two in a quality of honoring both as essential to be able to move forward, to be able to discern with whom to have company, whom to have community, and how to honor your own family. And so in this moment, Max comes to his resting point, a place to reside, to rest next to his wife Heidi and next to his daughter Irene. Moshe ben Binyamin Miriam, Max, was indeed a man whose life led to contentment, to being Ashrei. Yezichrono livracha. May his memory endure for you, his children, his grandchildren, and through you, in the stories you tell of him and Heidi to their great-grandchildren as their living memorial. May those stories be a blessing as Max was to you. Amen.
Amen.
I invite you to rise for the chanting of repose, the prayer of El Malay. El Malay Rachamim Bamromim Hamitzei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei Shechina B'malot Kedoshim Utarim Kezoha Harakia Masirim Et Nishmat Moshe Ben Vinyaminu Miriam Shalach Lo Lamo Began Eden Tehei Menuchato Ana Baralach Vimasterehu Besetek Anafech Lolamim Utzro Bitzor HaChayim Et Nishmato Adonai Hu Nachalato V'yanuach B'Shalom Al Mishkavo V'nomar Amen. O God, exalted and full of compassion, grant perfect peace in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure to the soul of Max Brauer, Moshe ben Binyamin Umiriam, who is gone to his eternal home. Master of mercy, we beseech you, remember all the worthy and righteous deeds that he performed in the land of the living. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life, for the Lord is his portion. May Moshe Max rest in peace, and let us say, Amen. Remain standing as the casket is lowered. our tradition, participation in burial is an act of kindness and truth. Kindness in terms of meeting the needs of a loved one, and truth knowing there is no reciprocation. It's simply an act of caregiving and love. I invite the family to be the first to place earth, first children and grandchildren, and then others will participate. To invite friends now on both sides to participate in honoring Mass.
We also have two sides closed.
You realize how important things are. Jesus. It's a good one. We gotta turn it back on. Good job, cuz. Keeping track.
Honor him.
You did solid work. We're both on
Tenía un arbolito con su hija y sus mandarinas. Y siempre venía y decía, "¿Qué pasa? Porque no podía comer tanto." No había quien lo cuidara.
So I'm going to invite Ernesto with Jackie and Ingrid to join with me, as well as the family, for Kaddish. Once earth is put onto the ground, at that point, immediate family, children, in this case, become mourners. For children, distinctly in our tradition, the period of mourning is a year. I say distinctly. For others, siblings, spouse, even children, spouse, siblings, parents, it's 30 days, but a child for one's parent, it's a full year. The Kaddish that is said, the prayer that is said at graveside, is in Aramaic. Aramaic is related to Hebrew the way French is to Spanish. They both come from a common source. Aramaic was the street language of Israel in the early centuries and became the language people understood. The words of Kaddish are words of hope-making, that God will create a world yet ahead of order. There are 5 different versions of Kaddish. This version that is said at the graveside is only said in one other setting, and that's in celebration of study, of the learning of a tractate, of sacred text. We're reminded, as in this case, that Max's life was a sacred text, a Torah. I read the first paragraph. Ernesto will join me, and then together from Yehei Shmei Rabbah we'll join together. Yitkadal v'yitkadash Shmei Rabbah bi'alma dihu atid lehid achdata ul achayaa meitaya ul asaka yarhon lechaye alma umivnei karta de Yerushalem ul shachlala hechle begava ul merkal palchana nuchra'a min ar'a v'la'atava palchana dishmaya yala'adre v'yamlich kutsha berichu b'malchute v'karei b'chayechonu v'yomechonu v'chayedecho Beit Yisrael ba'agala uvizman kari v'imru amen Yehei Shmei Rabbah mevarach leolam omei maya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudsha berichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damiran be'alma v'imru amen Yehei shlama Abba min Shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen Osei shalom v'momar hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen.
Is the meal that's shared after this?
Howard Rosenthal, Ingrid's husband, has directions to the Rosenthal home for the meal of consolation right after. We form two lines, and the family will walk through as that will formally mark their departure and the ending of the funeral. As they please now begin to form those two lines over this way.
So we'll do the line.
Yeah.
Just let you kind of get.
Alex and Ian. Yeah, we're going to walk all together. Okay, and Greg,
We say to the family, yeah. May the source of life be a comfort to you amidst your loss of life. Moshe ben Binyamin Miriam Max Brauer Yezichrono Livracha. May your father, your grandfather, be a source of blessing to you. And we say, Amen.